Welcome to episode 255, 3 Communication Strategies for Marriage, Relationships, and Parenthood with Amanda Silvas. Welcome to the Be That 1% podcast. I'm your host, James Silvas, mindset specialist and performance coach. And here on the show, I'm going to challenge you to think deeper, commit to greatness, and develop a stronger mindset. You'll hear stories from those who are living life on their terms, and you'll receive strategies that will help you level up. So the question is, are you ready to be your own 1%? Let's get started. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Be That 1% podcast. Today, my amazing, beautiful wife joins me in the studio today, and we're doing a video version. We decided, hey, we're going to switch things up rather than doing it at the house where there's tons of distractions and potential barging in from our son, Aiden. Let's get away and really connect and share what we've been through the last couple years. And so for those of you who don't know or haven't been following Be That 1% for a while, Amanda's a big reason why this podcast is where it is today. She's the one who helped build it. We were co-hosting out for a while when it first released. And it's been about a year since she's recorded any sort of podcast, workshop, anything. And so it's kind of cool to have her here to share her journey regarding parenthood, motherhood, and then our relationship, how it's evolved over the years. So babe, I love you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Welcome back.
Welcome back. Yeah.
Yeah. We started in 2017 because I was a big podcast junkie. Would go on the morning walks with our dogs before kids. We lived in a neighborhood that had all these back trails, or runs and things like that. So you pop in a podcast. Gosh, back then it was like Lewis Howe's School of Greatness as he was growing, and Amy Porterfield's and Pat Flynn's. And I was just like learning as much as I could, as fast as I could, listening to all these business podcasts, and going to all the events and things like that. And I was just like, James, you need this. We need this. We're doing it together. And I just got my hands in the trenches and learned how to build a podcast and do all of the things required on the back end to like with the software and uploading and editing and creating the intros, outros, who to interview and how to pitch and the framework. And we were way more detail oriented then with the spreadsheets and everything. And as it's evolved. Yes. It's become easier in regards, easier in regards to like, you kind of know how to ebb and flow within stuff and where your audience is at and what they need.
Yeah. The systems are in place now.
Yes,
it's just plug and play.
The systems are in place. And now you're on season 4.
No, season 6.
Oh my God, Amanda. That's so embarrassing for me. Season 6. Okay.
This is how far she's been off the game. She's been in full mom mode for like 2.5 years. And as she's talking about like breaking everything down, that's how she like approaches motherhood. She figures things out. She's researching. She's like, okay, I think we should do this at this milestone with the kids. And I was reading about this. We should implement this eating schedule or these types of foods. And that's one of the things that I really admire and love about you is once you want something, you like become, I don't know, obsessive, maybe a strong word, but you become resourceful and you figure it out. And you've done an incredible job as a mother specifically, raising our kids, our future leaders.
This just reminded me, one of our good friends, Chelsea Pierce, who has helped me incredibly when I was doing all my self-love coaching and my Joyride events. She was in town recently from Costa Rica, and her and I were talking, and she's like, what's been the hardest thing lately with motherhood? And it was like something that I like just spouted out that I didn't realize. And I said, how do I phrase this? My identity as this entrepreneur, having not been an entrepreneur for a year, but still like identifying, but then also feeling this like sort of imposter syndrome too, because I have been so wrapped up in motherhood in a beautiful, grateful way,
Mm-hmm.
because we are in a position that not everyone gets to be in, to where I can take that time and space to be with our kids. Of course, we have help. I'm not going to pretend that I do it by myself or with James. Like, we have both sets of grandparents here. So blessed. And we've had a few nannies and babysitters that have helped us within the last few years. So I do have space and time for myself to create, but the last 2.5 years have been primarily focused on motherhood.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last year specifically, I almost went on this like sabbatical, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
Had a lot of things happen at the beginning of 2022. Yes, beginning of 2022. Some things with clients, my grandma passing, where I was like, I just need to take a step back, and had gotten pregnant, and I didn't want the stress of all of that to interfere with those first early weeks of pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of just dove into taking care of the family part,
Mm-hmm.
so that you could excel and take and be fully present within Silva Speaks and be that 1% and travel. I mean, there's a lot of support on the back end that goes into this business growing and you being able to do what you do.
Absolutely.
I feel a lot of times the stay-at-home mom role, people don't see everything that goes involved, like the sacrifice.
Unless you're a parent,
made.
you don't really
You don't
know.
see it, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I didn't see it, and I used to be like, "Oh, it must be nice," you know, being a stay-at-home mom, and
the sacrifice, the priority shift, the always having to be on, the sleep deprivation.
I'm currently in. 'Cause our second son was born in November, and he will be 5 months this week, and is still waking up twice through the night.
Yes.
I'm really feeling.
Yeah. So to be here this early is good. It's a win.
It's a win.
But going from one kid to two kids was different, obviously. You know, having a first kid is lifestyle change. We've talked about this before.
You've said this really well.
Like, having the first kid is everything in your life completely changes. I have to baby proof the house. I have to get the diapers. I have to organize the room. I have to get the clothes. Everything's new for the first time. If he coughs this way or she coughs this way, what does that mean? And you're just your levels of stress are just higher because everything is so new, and there's so much newness every single day that it can be overwhelming. But once you get in a rhythm of just knowing that you're not going to know everything, then if you're, for us, we introduced another child, that was not a lifestyle change because we have already been used to that. That was a time management change.
A juggling change.
Yes. How do we manage all these clocks that are constantly going off, from nap schedules to eating windows to soccer class or, soccer training to hanging out with the family to organizing babysitters. We
also say soccer training very loosely. It's basically chasing Aiden to stay in the class.
Right. He doesn't even kick the ball. So he's like just social hour with the teacher, basically. But really, like, and then the work schedule of, like, for me, I love so much what I do. So me having to, like, find barrier or boundaries with that, and we've talked about that before, with the guilt that I feel and the challenge of trying to, I hate the word balance, but, like, manage that.
Well, I mean, you and I have talked about it, but not on this in a way like this. So why don't you share what it was that you were feeling that made you share that with your therapist, and then from that, you and I spoke and created an agreement, because maybe those tools might help someone else feeling shame or guilt for the work that they do and not being present with family, and vice versa. Yeah.
So as a father, I have an idea of what I would like to be. A provider, a protector, a teacher, a student, all these kind of labels that come with stories and expectations and standards that I feel I need to meet or want to meet to make sure that our kids are growing up with the best version of me. And so with that comes time commitments. So I have three loves that I'm juggling at all times. It's like the love for you and our relationship going on 11 years, right? 12 years,
yeah.
going on 12 years, then the love for our kids, and then the love for the work that I do. And when I'm in one, my natural tendency is to think about the other.
Yeah.
And so that's why presence is such a big topic for me, because it's one, I need it.
Yeah.
And the more I've studied it, the more I've challenged myself to be where my feet are. And I've found myself when I'm with Aiden at the park, I'm thinking about the work that I need to get done. Or when I'm at work, I'm thinking about being with Aiden and Oakley and you and all the things that I want to do with you all. And then there's a guilt that gets produced there. A guilt that me as a father should be spending more time with my family, not in the business. And so, that comes with ideas of like, okay, well, let's put things in autopilot on the business and let's create programs that are evergreen that can support financially so I don't have to be in it. But I love the work, so I want to be in it to a large degree. And so I kept finding myself of like, I'm here, but I want to be there. And then when I'm there, I want to be here. And I was never there. I was never here. And I was telling my therapist about this. I was like, I'm a person that wants to pursue mastery in what I do. I want to be great at what I do. I want to be known for the quality of work that I produce. And with that level of quality comes discipline in putting reps in every single day, researching, studying, practicing, doing the work. And I love doing it because I know that by doing it, I can serve at a higher level. So there's a strong calling that professionally, it satisfies a lot of my needs, and it provides for the family. It creates impact on those that I serve. It helps lift the positivity in the world. And so I am drawn to it. And the more time I spend there, I'm like, should I be spending this much time? So I asked my therapist, I'm like, do you think it's possible for someone to achieve high level success, like ultra high, top 1% in the industry, and still have a healthy work life, or like personal life? Because a lot of times you see high level athletes or high level CEOs have broken families, divorce rates, they don't see their kids. And I've always kind of thought about that.
Yeah.
And we both agree that it's very rare. It's very hard to do that. And so I had to ask myself, how much time do I need to still feel like I'm making progress professionally and still have the time that I feel is good enough to be with the family and create memories and be there?
Yeah.
And I didn't have an answer at that moment, but I knew that that's the question I needed to ask. And so I was stewing on that for a couple hours after my session with my therapist. And then I came to you about it, and I was like, we got to figure something out because this is not working. I'm in the office, but I'm not fully there because of the guilt I feel for not being with all of you. And so because of that conversation, we came up with a new workflow that allows me 8 hours to, arranged intentionally throughout the day to have a morning routine with our kids and you, and then also have time in the evening to be able to go outside and play and do things and also be there for dinner. And so far, it's been 4 weeks since we've talked about that, and it's been working really well. And for now, maybe that will change, but for the stage of my career and our life, it seems to be a fit. But that wouldn't have happened if I didn't speak up and we didn't communicate and both of us chime in on what we feel is the right space to be in.
Yeah. And I just want to preface that this is all internal in his head, happening in your own internal dialogue, to where I didn't know that this was taking place within you. I thought you were being effective and you working when you needed to work and schedule certain things. And when you travel, obviously you're gone. And then when you're here, I figured that we had the typical Monday through Friday, you do your thing. And then if you needed to take a Saturday, you do it. Sometimes you have calls with clients on Sundays. But for the most part, I'd say Sundays were totally family days. Saturday would be up in the air to kind of depending on what things were taking place. And then when you traveled, you were traveling and working. But I didn't realize that for you, it was causing so much inner tension and inner battle that you weren't able to be fully effective in either mode. And so for me, it's important that with 2 kids and a wife and a family and all of the things that you are being effective, especially with the hours that you get to work, because it's changed through the years. I mean, you started your business when you were like 24 years old.
Yep.
Of course, it's going to change and evolve. The time's going to change and evolve. It was so much easier in those early days to put yourself all hours of the day into it and grind and hustle. It's not sustainable.
No.
People, I feel like, are becoming to the level of awareness of that now. I feel like in your 20s, it's very popular to grind and hustle.
I think it's essential.
It is. And people are like all about it.
Yeah.
Especially in entrepreneurship or sales or anything along those lines. And it's important. But then it's like, okay, at what level is this sustainable and how do I change that? And so then we change that. Or we changed that for you, for us, because then what was being of sacrifice? Me. And when I say me, was business was coming first. Whatever James needed was coming first. And I was supporting James in his growth. And I was putting myself last unintentionally, but also intentionally, all at the same time, as odd as that sounds. I didn't necessarily mean to, but I felt like my level of importance on what we were accomplishing was at the bottom tier. So then I was getting depleted and then feeling resentful. So then we had to switch those things up, those roles, and then allowing me to come out of that shadow part of being in the business and in the grind to then being able to share my voice, what I was passionate about, and then finding that like coexistence together. And then how do you then create a business to where it was solely focused on you and your coaching, your speaking, to then you're both like these co-creators who's then focusing on the business part, then like bringing in players to help you grow that, or employees, or outsourcing. And then you see what working and is tweak, and then you tweak that, because then maybe one person is like, how do you support me and my growth and me support you and your growth without allowing each other to overshine? There was those things. And then course correcting again when I needed to take a back seat again because I got pregnant, had to have a child. It definitely takes a toll more on the woman, 100%. There's no way around it. It's like our bodies are being the ones having to be sacrificed, as intense as that sounds, but we go through it. I remember being in coaching calls and at events and just not being able to think and speak and realizing like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this and make this work? I'm like losing my train of thought. I am not feeling like myself. And then you go through the labor delivery process. First time is really challenging, 31 hours with Aiden. And then you're thrown into this world of a new mom and you're trying to figure out, how do I do this and have this identity as a mom and then have this identity as an entrepreneur and love the work that I do? It's very similar with you, but also like really take care of myself because my body just went through so much. How much time do I allow myself to heal? And then how much time is it like okay to pursue things again without looking like a quote unquote bad mom? And I feel like men don't necessarily have to deal with this. Like you guys have this role of like, I'm providing for my family, I'm doing the things, I'm in it. Where women, it's almost like if you get back in things too soon, it doesn't look good. Like if you stay in this thing, it doesn't look good. Now it's a non-winnable situation. It is.
Because you could start soon and be categorized as that, or you could not start soon as you think you should and then still be judged. So either way, you have to really hone in for what's best for you. That's right.
What's best for your body, what's best for your life, what's best for your family.
Yes.
For me, I was itching at 3 months to get back and to do things.
Mm-hmm.
And what was important for me was motherhood first, work secondary. So I started working part-time and doing coaching part-time and joyride events and things like that. Obviously, freaking COVID whipped us all in the butt and made us like really like change gears on everything. And now we're coming back from it and figuring those things out. But it's like a constant ebb and flow. Like what's working for us right now, like James has said, for 4 weeks is great and it's working for us. You know, he's in the office, shut those doors 8:30, and I try to stay away from him or not even text him, even if he's in the office or not, until 4:30, and that's like his hard stop time and family time. That works now, but you know, as things progress and I start diving back into some of the stuff that I want to pursue, we're going to have to course correct and figure out what works again.
Yeah.
It's like an ever evolving process, and communication.
Yes.
And time management.
Yes.
Like what once worked isn't always going to work. And I think that level of self-awareness and self-assessing our life of being like, what do we need? And how can we set this up?
Yeah.
Sometimes looking to other people and how they set things up is great, but you really have to hone in on like what is going to work for us, what's going to work for your business. And that way there's no shame or for working or guilt for not being with the family and things like that.
Yeah. And in the last 4 weeks, I've felt minimal, if not no guilt, because I know that once I'm in there, I'm there. That's my time. And that's the mastery hours, you know, just putting it in. Maintaining that level of flexibility is key. But the only way to do that is to communicate, to have the courage to express what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what isn't working, and bringing that to your partner or to whoever. It could be a business partner, it could be a marriage, it could be anyone. But being able to vocalize what it is that you're experiencing, having thought about it prior to bringing it up.
How long do you feel, now this is like a loaded question because there's so many thoughts to communicate or feelings. How long is it that you marinate on something before you bring it to my attention or awareness?
Well, it's definitely a lot less than it used to be because I think when we first started dating almost a decade ago, it would take sometimes months, especially if it was around fear, because with fear came insecurity. With that insecurity came past trauma from my relationships and who I wanted to be, who I thought I needed to be in order for you to, my thought was for you to love me, want to stay with me, all of that. And having worked on a lot of those things, it's definitely sped up the time. And then I also think it changes depending on what the topic is. If it's something that I'm feeling, I like to give it some time to see if it's a consistent feeling, because it might just be a fleeting thing that I can work through on my own, just through my own awareness. So I would say definitely with the guilt thing, that had been a couple months that I had been stewing on that. And it wasn't like an everyday thing, but it was a weekly thing.
Oh, eating away at you thing.
Yeah, it was like a chipping, like, oh, there it is again. Interesting. Okay. There it is again. There it is again.
So for you, your brain went ding, ding, ding. This is obviously important and something that I need to kind of explore before then bringing, which I'm so glad that you do see a therapist that works for you so that you guys can talk through those things too.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those of you who don't, have one, I highly, highly suggest it. Like, and know that they're moldable to like what you need. Like I sought him out, not because there was a pressing issue, but more proactively to say, hey, there may be some blind spots that I'm not seeing, and I'm totally open to that. So free reign there. And also I'm reaching out because I want you to help me be able to be more articulate with my content. So I'm going to bring ideas to you about what I think about the world, and I'd love for you to poke holes in it. And that helped me become a better communicator through a therapeutic lens by my intentional choosing to want to do that. And that was almost 2.5 years ago. And he's been with me ever since. I see him roughly every 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
and I'm bringing content there. And he has questions, and he's really good at digging and probing, and it's been helpful. But I'm bringing a lot there. And so this last time where that got brought up 2 or 3 sessions ago, it started with high performance and being able to balance the time, and then it got really down into the grief or the guilt.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think it's important for people to have a space, especially as I say this now. We are huge givers. Every one of us is giving our time and attention to other people. We're sacrificing our time and attention for other needs, goals, things that we're trying to achieve or do, whether it's for clients, whether it's for family, whether it's for friends, whether it's to hit a new quota, right? Or you're out there door knocking or trying to get another lead, like whatever it is, like we're focusing so much externally. So it's very limited time that we get to focus internally and have that space for ourselves to even communicate what's going on in our mind. Not a lot of people take the time to like sit there and journal out their thoughts every day.
Yeah.
I used to be able to have that time and space. I could, theoretically speaking, create that time and space for myself. Again, it would be very challenging. I could, but it was different before kids to have that space.
Yeah.
So when you have something like a therapist or a coach, you get that undivided attention that we all need and we all crave. It's like solely focused on you and what's going on in your life and your needs and being able to vocalize some of the things that you're feeling and thinking, because those things probably don't get vocalized very much. So for you, I can see why it helps, especially for people that are performing at a high level, entrepreneurs, people that have to lead a team. Creating that time and space for you solely is incredibly imperative. And then you can communicate what it is that you want, because you've sifted through all of the other external noise and you found like the root cause or the issue, and then you can bring that to your partner, or you bring that to your team or to the client that you're working with, and it could be more efficient. And so I feel like in our communication, we've become more efficient. Where we're like, here's the need, boom. But that's taken a while. The self-awareness key has taken a while. I would say for me, communication-wise, it's like right then and there.
No,
but maybe women are different
I love
in
that about you.
aspect, where I'll be like, should I say this or should I not? And most time I'm like, screw it, I'm saying this. I'll be like, do you know what? Did you know that? And it's not to be like a pointing at your finger, like, shame on you, James, you did wrong. It's like hey, I want to bring this to your level of awareness, because maybe you didn't even realize you did what you just did or said what you just said. And this hurt, or I received it this way, and I'm sure that wasn't your intention, but let's talk about this so it doesn't happen again.
Yeah, you did that the other day.
Yeah. So I think that is something that we do within our marriage that is huge. And then your marriage, once you have kids, gets tested, because then you become parents. You have different relationships. You have a relationship with each other as people that love each other, right? And you want to be together. But then you have like another pillar, which is then your marriage, to work and make sure that that's solid. And then you have parenthood. And if you're lucky, real lucky like us, then you have business partners.
Yeah. You're going to battle every day.
So when then it becomes to parenthood on communication within parenthood, of like how James just did something with Aiden, and I'm like, I just want to let you know how you just handled that, and like maybe you need to take a step away, or you need to have a little bit more patience, or hey, I saw this post, because I follow so many like children stuff now, and the best way to handle that situation will be like this in the future. So I'm a very like right then and there kind of person.
And I think that there's been times where I do vocalize things at the moment and I work through it with you, but my preferred strategy is to see how consistent it is. And then also through that time of seeing that consistency, it helps me articulate it better. So I'm able to bring something that may be a little bit more solvable to you, as opposed to just throwing it all out there and having to work through it in real time, depending on how much time we have. You know, because we might have to have a deep conversation in the car while both kids are sleeping, as opposed to like over dinner with no distractions. You know what I mean? Or, by the time the kids go down, we're tired from the day of getting up early and all of our responsibilities. And so our bandwidth isn't as high as we might like it to be to have the space to have those conversations. So we're having to like sprinkle it wherever we get that time. In a lot of ways, you know, there are the occasional like date nights where we can really go deep and love those. And I think everyone should have those. But
I don't even think we go that deep on date nights. It's like, oh my God, I get to sit and like have a meal. For me, I'm standing most of the time, half the time while dinner's, and like sometimes don't even finish my dinner or trying to do a lot of things. So it's a very chaotic mess. Where we're on date nights, I can actually sit and eat my food in peace and quiet. Sometimes we'll talk about things and catch up, but I would say some of my most enjoyable nights are when TV is off, we're sitting on the couch, the lights are dim, either having a glass of wine or just drinking, you know, like a Spindrift, and we just talk. And then that just like kind of ebbs and flows the conversation. And that talking for like an hour and a half, like those times are some of my favorite, because we're not trying to solve anything or talk about anything in particular. It's just talking.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is a huge connector.
That's also a good point of like, I think maybe some can get in this desire to want to solve something that doesn't need to be solved, right? It just needs to be explored. And there's a big difference there. I think if for me, like early on, I was like a fixer, right? And you were like, stop coaching me.
You still get like that.
Yeah. And I'm more mindful of it. Just have it, right?
You know, but on the flip side, I've been told by friends and family that don't talk to Amanda. She's going to coach you.
Right.
And I don't mean to.
Right. And so it's been like, there's hats, you know, and in the conversation, you have to like feel it.
Yeah.
Is this something that you want to like get to the bottom of, or is this something that we need to just open up and unpack a little bit? And then
it's like, what do you need right now as you're sharing this? Like, do you want, you know, some steps on how to work through this, or is it just something that you want to share right now?
Yeah. And I think that's been the most recent evolution of our
You have to ask
conversations. Yeah.
You really have to ask.
Not only ask, but sometimes tell, you know, or share like, hey, these are my needs right now. Can you please like hold this for me? Or can you do this for me? Or can we talk about this? Like, otherwise it's going to get lost. And the other person, you know, can be in their own flow, in their own head, dealing with their own things that you'll never know. So you have to initiate sometimes. Well, and there needs to be a good balance between that.
9 times out of 10, the people that you share some like sort of adversity that you're going through, or something that you're going through that A, will definitely need to be solved somewhere down the road, but B, you have a lot of emotions and feelings about. Most of the time, people are going to want to try and fix it or solve it for you, or just tell you how one time in their life they went through this and here's what they did, and they feel you or whatever. But I would say 99% of the time, you're just going to want to like vent and need that space for someone to hold space. And it's like, I don't need you to tell me like
within
something.
The marriage, you're saying?
Or just marriage, friendship, familyship, whatever. When it comes to communication, most of the time people are just wanting to share and just want you to hold space for that.
Yeah.
And then asking like, do you need me to help you solve this, or do you want to just take some time and space for this right now? Because I would say a lot of people just want to solve your like quote unquote problems.
Well, maybe. I'd say if you're a growth oriented relationship, you are going to have a good balance of both. For you, you're not always wanting to just talk about things. I think you also want to have a direction that you're wanting to head. You want to talk through like the next activity that you're wanting to do, or the next service that you're wanting to provide. For me, I'm wanting to talk about like what I learned from my recent travel working with a corporation and what they did that now inspired me to do this. Like, that is a share, but it's also, there's a direction to it, and there's a wanting of your perspective and wisdom to help me get better at that, for my perspective. And I don't know if that's a man thing or if that's a masculine thing, but I would say growth relationships have a lot of those elements to them. That there is the free share, and those are great. And there is the like, I'm sharing this with you because it's inspiring me, and I want your expertise to know how to do that better.
Got it.
I don't know if you feel the same way, but that's how I feel about our relationship.
I mean, would definitely define us as a growth,
Mm-hmm.
valued centered relationship. And it is all about sharpening one another.
Yeah.
And not allowing each other to live in that fear or play small or be stopped by anything in particular.
There's been times where I've shared things with you thinking that it was just a share. And then you're like, well, sounds like you're living from some fear. And I, as much as I didn't want to hear that, I needed to hear that.
Yeah.
Because that's what catalyzed me the next day to go and do what I did that produced the thing, And so that's what I appreciate about you is you have those moments where you lay it down, and I need that. And there's moments where you've come to me and I'm like, all right, I hear what you're saying, but you could also do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I imagine that you don't like hearing that either, but we both come away from that conversation better. And we both know that we're having that rooted in love, that I'm not trying to be better than you, that I'm not trying to make you feel less than. I'm trying to call you forward because I know what you're capable of and I see the potential that you are. And by no means you have to live up to that, but I'm going to let you know that I see it.
Yeah. We do that for each other.
Yeah.
And I mean, even in bed the other night, I just needed some space. I had like some bad news that I was sort of anticipating. So it didn't hit me as hard. But I needed to like have a hot shower and just have my own space and then sit in bed and journal, basically with like my towel wrapped in my head, my bathrobe kind of thing. Like I just needed some space to just like write out my thoughts and self-reflect without anyone, I don't want to say bothering me, but or just being in my space.
In your own space, yeah.
And then you came in and you're like, I could just feel like you wanted to talk with me about it. And I was like, God, I don't want to talk. And you're like, so how are you feeling? And I was like, oh, let me just marinate on what happened today.
Yeah.
And the more self-aware I get, I was talking to my sister about this the other night. The more self-aware that I've become and the more things that I've worked through within adversity because I've put myself out there, because I challenged myself to grow and reflect and understand myself. It's like you're able to sift through. You're like, okay, that's my true self. That's a limiting belief. That's fear talking. That's like me trying to play small or whatever. And you're like sifting through it. And it happens like so fast. You're like, and you feel all the feels within like a 30-minute window. And then you're like, okay, boom, this is what I need to do right now. But then you also allow that time and space to be like, let me just let this marinate before acting on anything. Let me just feel the feels, even though like I know like pretty much where my direction is and my next steps after this bad thing happened. But I was very proud with myself this last time of how I handled this situation.
Yeah.
And where people want to be like, oh my God, like almost tiptoe around it. Like, what do you need? Are you okay? I'm like, freaking fine. But that's me. Like, let's just like pick ourselves up and like, you don't want to give me a key to the door? Okay. Like, how can I make my own key? What am I going to do about this? I don't want to solve this right now. I know I'm going to solve it in the future, but like, let me give myself a week to then go and pursue that thing, you know? But at this time right now, babe, I don't really want to talk about my feeling. Here's the initial thoughts that I was thinking, what's upset me the most, but I don't really want to like stew and fester in it because in my opinion, in my life right now at this age, like it doesn't matter to go through all of it for me particularly because I journaled it all out. I got out and I found the outlet that works for me. Like I don't want to talk about things over and over and over again, where some people do need it.
Yeah.
And that's totally fine. But I've learned that I just need some time and space to self-reflect, journal that out. And then I need you there to help me see things outside of myself of like, okay, how do we make the key to the door that you're wanting to get into?
Yeah. And that's good. And
I guess that's my style
Yeah, and it's a great style. And I think over the years I've learned that more and more. And even when I come to you like I did the other night to make sure that you know I'm there for you, you saying that also helps me say, "Cool, got it." Like I'm not going to press. I just want you to know I'm here,
Yeah, because
you know.
James has done the opposite in the beginning,
Yeah.
and it would cause a lot of tension. When I wanted him to be there, he tiptoed around me and didn't address the elephant in the room or that I was feeling. He thought, oh, Amanda's upset. Give her as much space in the world as possible. Where I want you to be there and I want you to show that you want to be there.
Mm-hmm.
But I will communicate to you how much I need you
Yeah.
to be there in that moment.
And I think that that's critical because someone, whether it's the one person or another, can initiate and say, "Hey, I'm here for you." But if the other person doesn't open up and acknowledge that or share what they need in that moment, now that that person has held the space or presented the opportunity to do so, then it can't evolve. There's no reading of each other and what each one of the individuals needs.
And it's almost this mirror thing of like how things evolved in our time management and shifting of our schedules as we've grown, and how we said, okay, this is working for 4 weeks. It might not work. Same thing, communication styles are going to change. And then what worked in a relationship previously, let's say with your ex or however things worked or imploded, isn't going to work with your partner here. And then you both bring in different dynamics. You see this so much once you become parents and have kids, how much I see James's parents play such a huge impact on how he was raised and communication styles and parenting styles that he brings in just automatically. And then same thing with me, with the way I was raised, how my parents communicate those styles. Like you see it magnified intensely when you're parents, not so much when you don't have kids because the need for that isn't there quite yet. So it's really interesting. And so those levels of communication come in without you even realizing it because it was embedded to you because you saw your parents communicating in that way.
Right.
Or your dad treated your mom in that way, or your mom did this for your dad. And so then you expect me to do that for you and da-da-da-da, So those things are really important to, one, self-awareness, to know yourself and what you need and take the time and space to create that. And then 2, understand your partner and what they need. And then 3, how do you guys do this together as a team?
Right. That piece, because our relationship has always been centered around growth. So every conversation we have is always, we're under the assumption that everything that we say is being filtered through that intention, through love, obviously, but love and growth. And I think those go hand in hand, that if we're not growing, we don't feel as close. And so the feedback that you're giving me, as whether I want to hear it or not, is to help me grow so that our relationship can grow. That helps me digest it.
Yeah.
Right. And I've never felt anything outside of that. And I hope you probably felt the same from me. But we had that clear understanding from day one.
Well, yeah, because you scared the shit out of me.
Okay. I had to know.
Many of you that have been there from day one, I've heard this story, especially at events or in earlier episodes of the podcast. But James and I, when we were like freshly 21, dating maybe within a few months, like took me up to hike this mountain and basically told me like he really likes me and wants this to go somewhere, but he values growth and he's been hurt in the past and all of these things. But if we're not growing together, then there's no reason to be together. Like, this is what's important to me. This is what I want for my life. And I don't want to invest in another relationship for it to end in failure kind of thing. So if you're on board, great. And what's crazy is like up until that time, up until right then and there, like I was doing my own thing. I was fine not being in a relationship. I was really focusing on myself and bettering myself and taking school seriously, taking leadership seriously. James entering into my life was not a part of the plan. And I resisted him so much because I felt I was doing good, which I was. And James elevated me and made me better. And I hope I
Yeah.
did the same with you. But it was crazy because then fear crept in when he told me this. It was like, Amanda, this is everything that you've ever wanted in a boyfriend at the time or a partner. All the qualities, all of the values. Oh my gosh, but this is so scary. Like, what if I'm not growing? Will he not want to be with me? And so then, of course, I leaned in and said, yes, I agree 100%, And so it made growth incredibly important for me because one, I didn't want to lose you. And I wanted our relationship to stay together. But then also I had to self-reflect and realize how important growth for me and challenging myself and taking leadership roles and all of those things was already important to me and at a core of who I was.
Yeah.
So that it was okay to lean in and say yes.
Yeah.
And that there's going to be times in your relationship and in your life that James is going to be growing or your partner is going to be growing at a different rate than you. And then they kind of taper off and then you grow and then you taper off and then they grow and you kind of help each other grow and ebb and flow. A lot of women have come to me of like, I'm growing exponentially and like really putting a lot of work into myself and my partner's not.
Mm-hmm.
How do I get them to value this thing as important?
Yeah.
Or we're not growing at the same rate or we're whatever it may be. And there's two things. One, you don't need to grow at the same rate. That's fine. Is it an ebb and flow growth where he's growing or your partner's growing in general and then you're tapering off and vice versa? You kind of take those times. Or have you outgrown that relationship?
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay too, because things are seasonal.
Yeah.
But are you with someone that weathers those seasons and you do life together and you challenge one each other?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you at a point in your life where you've grown and you've outgrown them?
Yeah.
And they want X, Y, and Z and things are different now.
Right.
And that's okay to acknowledge.
Well, and two things stand out to me for that is like, well, how do you measure growth? Any couple, like what are the metrics, right?
That's important because what's growing for James and I, that equation is going to be very different 100%. For another couple.
Yeah, and in different chapters of life, right? So how do you define it?
Yes.
So that's key. But then also there's growth comes in many different forms. Although you necessarily haven't been growing, quote unquote, in professional life the last year or two, you have been growing in relationship skills, parenthood, and communication, right? And so I think also people need to realize that they may be growing in areas that they're not viewing themselves as growing, and becoming aware of that can help you feel like you're making progress, which shifts the perspective of yourself and the identity that you have around who you are. That can bring more value to a relationship. So for you, you've grown tremendously in the last 2 years, just not professionally as much as maybe you'd like. Whereas maybe for me, I haven't grown in certain areas that maybe you either want me to or haven't acknowledged, and I've grown in other areas. So that's part of the ebb and flow too, and it's important to identify those two things.
Yeah. Well, just like you said, there's like the different buckets. Same way, like not investments, but just like financials. You've got like these buckets for things that you put your money in.
Diversify. Yeah.
Yes. Same thing with growth can be diversified as well. Like, are you growing as
physically, emotionally?
Yeah. Are you growing within your fitness? Are you growing within your nutrition? Are you growing within like how you manage your time? Are you growing spiritually? Are you growing within how you manage your money? Are you growing within how you're being a parent? Are you growing within your marriage? Are you growing within business? Are you growing within your clients? Do you feel more connected to your partner? Like there's all of those things, just like you said. So it's not just one dimensional.
Yes.
Nor should it be one dimensional, because I've never met one person that's one dimensional.
No, but people think like that. It's like an all or nothing thing. If you're not growing here, you're not growing at all.
Yeah.
And life's not like that. Life's not black and white. Life is color. And there's many aspects.
You have to look at the person you're with and be like, how are they raised and what's their lifestyle? And like, are they at a point to where like they're in their opinion, like they're doing really well for themselves. Like they're doing X, Y, and Z that makes them happy. They're doing this that makes them happy. They've put themselves out here in this arena and that makes them happy. But it's not your definition of how you would want growth, but are they growing? You know,
Mm-hmm.
are they striving in their own viewpoint?
Right.
That's why these conversations, like taking like one every 2 weeks, so maybe 2 times a month,
So
even
2
once
hours.
once a month. Let's just say once a month where you turn the TV off. It's on a Wednesday night and you just sit on the couch and you talk and you just allow that conversation to ebb and flow. And maybe in the beginning, it's a little bit more structured so you can understand and define the things that are important to you. James and I have done workshops on this. We've been invited in for like couples workshops or held our own workshops for couples. And then we do this individually for people too, is trying to help people find those core values and then define those core values, put those core values into action definitions, so to speak. And it's so interesting when we ask couples to do this, because even though maybe it takes 30 minutes for the couple to agree on their top 5, it's a battle, let me tell you. Then it takes like another hour for them to then define what it means, what love means. What does communication mean?
Right. Because both
what
of
does
them
honesty mean?
Could have that same word, but totally different definitions.
They're experiencing it different. So how are you experiencing those needs that you need met versus the other person? You know, those styles are going to be so different, and you won't know it until you take the time to explore that together. And that's growth within a relationship. If your partner is willing to sit there with you, if you feel like you aren't growing as in a couple, but your relationship or your partner is willing to sit there in your relationship and explore those things, that's growth. And that's willingness. So if you're in that headspace of like, oh my gosh, is this going to last, or is this going to work? Seeing like, what's the effort being made? Am I expressing my needs? Are they receiving them? And are they trying? I don't need them to show up X, Y, and Z, but I just need to see like there's that little bit of effort to put these things that I'm feeling first. Most of the time, women are the ones to like initiate and do all of all the exploring, and the research of like, okay, we need to do this and this and this.
Well, and to tie this professionally, like because of the conversations we've had personally, I know firsthand that that's made me a better coach, and it's made me a better leader, because I recognize patterns inside myself and now in others that allow me to pinpoint stuck energy or limiting beliefs or emotional blockages. And by double clicking on it, it releases something that had been stored for years in the client or in a conversation. And all of that is because of the inner work that I've done, but also what you've mirrored back to me and what we've talked about together. So the more we do that, the more I grow here in this relationship. And then also every other relationship I'm in, I become better. I become upgraded. And so I think anyone listening, like these conversations that you have with the most intimate people in your life, know that that's how you upgrade. And it's through that upgrading that you become more effective at life. And any person who has ever been successful with anything has always had a strong support system. One way to build that strong support system is to communicate, to be vulnerable, to share things that you're struggling with, to talk about it, to go first, to listen, to ask questions, to sit in stillness with yourself. All of that matters.
From the time management piece, it mirrors, like I had said earlier, of like what's working now may not work later, and what worked in the past may not work now. So letting those things ever evolve too, and checking back in with each other of like, this used to work for you. Does this still work for you? Like, tell me, like get the other person to tell you what it is that they need and say, and then share back what it is that you just heard. Okay, so I heard you say this, and that person will tell you no, or course correct, or say yes, and say, okay, so from moving forward, and then reaffirm, you need this, this, and this, so I'm going to do X, Y, and Z for you. Yes. Okay, great. I think the biggest thing that I've seen is people think that they hear the person right, or the communication was there, and they do that thing, and it's way off. So reaffirming what it is that you heard is going to be incredibly important for that growth and that communication. And then knowing you're going to have to check in and like foster that relationship, whether it's with your partner or your family or your friend groups. Like I just got done doing a girls trip. Like my relationship with my girlfriends, it needs something different than my relationship with my husband. And I don't expect my husband to be the end all be all. And I don't expect that group of girlfriends to be the end all be all for my friendship levels that I need. There's different buckets that need filled, and that's okay. I think that was one of the biggest things I've learned. I can't remember from who early on when I was like really diving into personal development, is that like your partner doesn't need to be the end all be all. I think that was Lori Harder when we were connected with her and Chris for a while. It was like her thinking, oh my God, my husband needs to be the end all be all for me, like hit every bucket and every need.
Yeah.
No, he doesn't. No, she doesn't. Like,
Nor can anyone.
Don't expect that from everyone.
You're going to be disappointed.
That's
all
heavy
the time.
and a lot for someone to carry. So know that you are, a complex person. You need different things from different people, and vice versa. And so checking in, because that communication is going to be fostered. Just because you set it up once, it's kind of like a back end funnel or something you put on evergreen. Just because you set it up once and then that email to go out automatically doesn't mean you set it and forget it. You constantly got to come back to what's performing, what's working, what's not working. Your pitch when you're going door to door or in sales, like, let me tweak this. What is my close ratio? Yeah. Okay. At what point am I connecting with them in that conversation? And what point do I lose them?
Yeah.
All of those things. It's the same thing within your communication within your relationship. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
How do I need to be there?
We've already talked about that.
Yeah.
How many times? Once.
No.
That just scratched the surface.
It's like, oh, well, we had a date night, or, oh, we had sex 2 weeks ago, so we're good for a while. It's like, no, you kind of need to, keep fostering those things and making sure that those needs are met.
What gets watered grows.
Yeah.
And so you can't not water something and expect it to grow. So whatever you deem is important and however much energy you have, that needs to be allocated to those most important things that align with your values and what you want your life to be. And if you want a strong relationship, or you want someone in your life to be a strong support system for you, you're going to have to water that. No matter how many times, you can't just expect them to do it for you.
Well, a lot of people that I know listen to your podcast or resonate with Be That 1% brand are extreme go-getters. They're very driven. They perform at such a high level. They are the leaders. They have their own team or their own business or their own company. And the relationship sometimes gets not put on the back burner, but can be the struggle area.
Yeah.
Because they are so focused on achieving their goals and so focused on their company or their sales that they don't give as much time to those areas. And they think that it's fine because if it's not broken, then what's the problem?
Or she hasn't, or he hasn't said anything.
They haven't said anything, so it's fine. And then that one day turns into a week, and that week turns into a month. And here you are 6 months later, and they're like expressing to you that I haven't felt connected in the last 6 months. And you're like, why haven't you said anything?
Yeah.
Well, did you guys create the foundation for that safe space to communicate? Did you create that foundation to have those date nights, to have those couch check-ins, those little couch conversations where you turn off the TV, put music on in the background, smooth jazz, I don't know, Ed Sheeran on in the background. Hey, Google, hey, Alexa, play relaxing music.
Yeah.
And let's just talk and have that connection time. I mean, it feels insane how fast time goes by now. And it'll go by even faster, like the more focused you get on something. And the other things that are important to you might get pushed to the side because you are such a career-driven person and goal-oriented person. But if you don't take that time to have those check-ins and that rooted foundation for your relationship, it can drift away faster than you realize.
Right.
And that person may not, your support system may not want to speak up because they feel guilty that they're pulling you away from something that's important to you, or you're the main provider, you're more important. where you guys are a team, you're a unit.
Mm-hmm.
You both carry different strengths. And that's something that I had to realize, that just because my contribution isn't money to where there's a dollar sign, I think a lot of people see that contribution within numbers is easier because you can measure things growth wise. Like, oh, it's falling, so I'm not doing as good, or oh, it's rising, or I'm hitting these sales. Okay, so I'm doing good,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm contributing, I'm bringing in money. Where I had to give myself a reality check, and it took a long time to realize I'm equally contributing to our family and to our growth in different ways.
You are.
And allowing that to be okay, that I wasn't at the forefront bringing things in a business professional way,
Mm-hmm.
but that I was the glue to a
Yes.
lot of what people would feel at the end of their life were the important things in life.
Yeah.
And there's, just to share, like Easter weekend, I feel like the mother in the relationship tends to be the one that shops for the Easter outfits, shops for the Easter presents. If you celebrate Easter or any holiday, so to speak, does all the things, dyeing the eggs with the kids, making the deviled eggs, setting out the egg hunt, putting the baskets together, saying, okay, we're going to church at this time. Everyone needs to be ready out the door. Okay, we're going to be doing things with family at this time. And then it's like, it's a lot. And at the end of the day, you're like, oh my God, I hope my kids love this. I hope I'm making memories. Holidays are a lot on moms. And at the end of the day, I felt like, gosh, I didn't realize James didn't say thank you for any of that. I wasn't doing it. I was doing it for our kids. Maybe he wasn't directly impacted, like that I picked out his outfit, let's say. He picked out his own outfit. But there was no like, babe, thanks so much for putting that all together for our kids. Thanks so much for taking the lead on that for our family. And I was like, babe, you didn't say thank you, and that really hurt me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So for me, that's an example of my communication style, is being able to like talk about it within that 24-hour window.
Yeah. And that's good. And that gives me an action plan and awareness
Mm-hmm.
in real time. Feedback is key, and timeliness of that feedback is even more important. So I love you. I'm grateful for you. As we wrap up, any last words that you want to share?
Well, I know we wanted to talk about like what's been one life lesson that has revealed itself now as parents of 2. We've got our family of 4, parents of 2, business growth. You now are starting to travel internationally for teams. Your price points are higher. Like everything is elevated. Brands that you're working with is elevated. Family life is elevated. Relationship elevated. What are you learning right now in life? What's become like of awareness to you?
That you get out of life what you feel you deserve. Part 1. And part 2, you focus on the work solely and developing the skill, and eventually that lifestyle will emerge.
Mm-hmm.
Like Nike was on my vision board for 6 years, and now I'm at that level, communicating with them regularly, leading trainings, and all these international companies, and just the level of clientele that I'm serving has been what I've always wanted for the last, I don't know, since I started. But I've had that in mind, but then I've always focused on like, how can I get better today?
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like a strong clarity on the micro of day to day, and then a vision of like the macro where I'm headed, and just holding that line, holding that standard, and not wavering.
Yeah.
And putting in daily effort. Like, it's really been beautiful. I love doing life with you, babe. Thank you. Absolutely. All right, everybody. Go out there, be your own 1%, communicate, build those relationships, and we'll see you on the next one.